3 days in San Francisco is simply not enough time, especially on your first visit. So, here is how to spend it wisely, according to Gremlins. Normally, we give the so-called attractions a wide berth, because they're tourist traps, which, being tourists, we do not like. Your average mouse isn't a fan of mouse traps either. You'd think the operators would get it, be a little more subtle about the sell, but no. Consequently, there's no denying it. Pier 39 and Fisherman's Wharf are both tourist traps. We run so fast I barely have any footage. Luckily, the Library of Congress and the San Francisco Public Library have plenty to share, just by the by. However, this is San Francisco, so there are some redeeming virtues. At Pier 39 is the amazing sunset views over the Golden Gate. And also the sea lions. As a species, they are not native to these parts. But these specific ones are second or third generation. So I'd say they are native by now.
What do you think's cuter, the sea lions or the sea lions?
Fisherman's Wharf, on the other hand, has history, starting with its very origin, which is a really good story, so I have to tell it. So, in 1849, when San Francisco took off during the California gold fever, this area was nowhere near the port. In 1851, one recent arrival from Boston, the lumber merchant Henry Meiggs, decided to change that. It made total sense. It was closer to the Golden Gate and the shipping routes, and empty, so you could build all the warehousing you needed and move the manufacturing closer. So Meiggs did. In a massive development, he graded the land, extended Powell Street, built an access road around the foot of Telegraph Hill, run some railway tracks, all of it to serve a brand new wharf. Whole 2,000 feet of it. It had everything to be a smashing success, but it wasn't. The trouble with this being, Meiggs paid for the development with the money he borrowed from the city, without the city's knowledge, in the form of a blank book of signed treasury warrants that his brother, the city comptroller, mislaid on Meiggs' desk. So, one sunny morning in 1854, Meiggs and his family, including the brother, simply disappeared. They were later found in Chile, where Meiggs went on to become a millionaire. And here's the thing, a man of honor. He paid it all back. Eventually. Well, mostly. He was a businessman after all. He was never allowed back to San Francisco, but his wharf stayed in place. After some ups and downs, including a certain volume of passenger traffic, it ended up as the city's fishing port. The trade was plied mostly by Italian immigrants, with a peppering of Chinese, both nationalities living close by in North Beach and Chinatown. So it was the Italians that gave it character and flavor throughout most of the 20th century. At some point they figure out you can make a lot more money on cooking than you can on fishing, which in the 1950s and 60s heralded the beginning of Fisherman's Wharf as an entertainment area and tourist destination, and the end of its original character. You can still see the fishing and industrial past, especially here, and here in the Cannery. Built in 1907, this originally Fontana and then Del Monte fruit and vegetable cannery
was, in the 1910s, the largest of its kind in the entire world. So I read. Anyway, business was just peachy. They count mostly peaches, I understand. All the way until 1937, when, in an aftershock from the Great Depression, the market disappeared and it had to close down. Used as warehousing for the next 30 years or so, it was saved from the wrecking ball by local lawyer and entrepreneur Leonard Martin, and lovingly restored and upgraded as an entertainment and shopping center with an art gallery on the side. It is now occupied by the Academy of the Arts, but has some public access areas which really do look like fun. Sadly, we had no time to go in, so this is one of the things I think we've missed. Just up the road is Cannery's close cousin, the Ghirardelli Square, formerly the home of this gentleman's chocolate factory. He did preserve the old woolen mill then existing on the side, so it's only right that what he added should also have been preserved, as I believe the first funky post-industrial shopping and entertainment mall in the USA. It is very nice indeed, even though we have little use for 2 kilograms of chocolate, especially when flying. Where we come from, these developments are pretty common, so we weren't exactly thrown to our knees, but it's pretty. You should at least walk through it. The Mermaid Fountain is some sort of feminist manifesto, I read. Not that I can see that. And also, just outside, is the wonderful Art Deco building of the Maritime Museum, with the matching Aquatic Park and a little city beach favored by the locals. So, the tourist traps have their good sides. What you totally can skip is Lombard Street. It's not even the windiest street here. That's Vermont Street. People apparently were bothered enough to do some science on this. While it's entertaining to watch people fall off their skateboards, you can do the same at home on Fail Army. So, save your time here. And speaking of time, it's time for things we do all over again. Because they were so much fun. And the number one here was biking the bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge, to be specific. Roughly from Fisherman's Wharf to Sausalito, returning by ferry. This was such a great day out that it gets its own video. Since, as just demonstrated, I can go on for 10 minutes plus about the things that we just thought, yeah. So, if you'd like more details, watch the next episode. Number 2, walking the city, which also gets its own video because even just since the 1840s, and even only just scratching the surface within a very limited area, there are so many stories tied to the locations and architecture. Plus, you've come to see the city, well, go see the city, not out of a car or a tour bus window. You could also rent a bike and cover more ground, but we weren't keen on joining the traffic. So that's the episode after next, and it's wonderful and full of stories. What does not get its own video and is the one tourist attraction that we truly enjoyed are the cable cars, or as I would call them, the trams, because trams are public transportation and cable cars are something you take when skiing. Although, in fairness, these streets could well be slopes. They are wonderfully preserved / restored. And the staff are polite and very informative.
Emergency right there. He has a handprint for the rear brake. So the wheels on the wheels only. So I have 75%. That's pretty nice.
And it's great fun, however. Yeah, there's usually a however. At $8 per person ride, children, elderly and pregnant women included, infants might be free. It's pretty steep. So, as it's a flat fee, whether you're riding a few stops or the whole line end to end, from the bang for your buck perspective, it makes a whole lot of sense to get on at a terminal. Which, if you want to join in, means at least an hour of queuing at pretty much any time. So, as time was the one thing we did not have, the 2 times that we rode, we got on a couple of stops in. Now, don't ask me how that's possible, because they leave the terminal completely full and nobody gets off, yet there are seats 3 stops further on. I don't know, maybe they add more dimensions as they go on. Don't know how, but it worked, both times. Also, they might be adding dimensions, but not enough of them. So expect this sort of situation rather than the romanticized, oh, we'll be in those seats that face outside, just the 2 of us. So, do it, but not too many times. What we found more useful and almost as much fun were these, the more modern trams. And by more modern, I mean here 60 or 70 years old, so that has to count for something too. Outside of peak hours, you're guaranteed a padded seat. $3 for 120 minutes with transfers under 18s free. And there's a whole network, so you can actually get places. Very much recommended. Which, for this time, just leaves number 4. The San Francisco downtown parks. There are very many, several of them really good, very many of them really small. And here are some that are close to most standard tourist routes and which you can use as a part of your own. First up is, or rather are, the Yerba Buena Gardens, which can be reached through this architecturally extremely eclectic passage, including the modern Jewish museum sandwiched between some old churches. Well, as old as they get down here anyway. The name is a misnomer, or a poor attempt at gentrification by history. We failed to spot the native Yerba Buena plant in the park, and the new Spanish town of Yerba Buena, the nucleus of what was to be renamed San Francisco, was all the way here, not here. Meanwhile, some quarter of a century old, it has the feel of that plant's welcome if well behaved and not overabundant sort of place. But it has an interesting backstory. This area, centered around Howard Street in the south of Market city center neighborhood, was historically inhabited by cheap labor, supporting the nearby port and its associated industries. Just a handful of remnants of this are still standing. So the fortunes here were never splendid and at times dipped below starvation level. By the 1940s, this section of Howard Street was known as the Skid Row. Well, they didn't have fentanyl and tenderloin back then. So in the 1950s, as was then the fashion, plan was hatched to clear away all the old buildings in this area and replace them with some nondescript concrete monstrosities. The project was spearheaded by Mayor Aliotto, who may or may not have had his fingers in the till. I prefer to believe he did it out of the badness of his heart. And here, in 1958, comes the twist. These inaffluent working-class men, living in the rooming houses and cheap hotels run in those old buildings, got together, formed an association, and stopped the development by suing the city and winning. 30 years of to and fro followed. It was a piece of prime real estate in the city centre. But in the end, the redevelopment as completed had to include various cultural and public institutions, such as the park, museums, theatres, but also an ice skating rink and a bowling alley, the subject of the final battle here, successfully re-included in the plan, with the original inhabitants rehoused somewhere else in the city. One would hope somewhere decent, although I have to say I do not know. So here it is, your green respite in the concrete desert. We did not find the bowling alley, but we found a carousel. Alright, onwards and upwards. Upwards, because not far from Yerba Buena Gardens is the Salesforce Park, built on top of a transit terminal. I am fond of a park on top of a structure. This one is newish and has no history that I could find anyway. But it is a so much better way of walking this stretch of the road than just following the street beneath. It is earthquake-proof and has various educational little gardens. And a cafe, and live music,
and you're above and below things at the same time. And I do also like my reflections.
Like a tiger, wild.
It's a good one. Don't miss it. Also, it's on top of one transit terminal and next door to another, which might come handy, cause our last park is a fair step away. It's called Francisco Park, and if the shape seems a little odd to you, you are correct. It is not its first incarnation. Built in 1859, this was the Russian Hill Reservoir. At this point, San Francisco main water supply. The water coming via wooden pipes all the way from the mountain lake to the northeast of the city. The original structure is no longer visible, but you can see and even walk on the 1920s expansion and upgrade. Yeah, you're there and we're there. It was privately operated until the 1930s, then acquired by the city, and finally abandoned and replaced by the Lombard Street Reservoir in 1947. That one is also a park today. Afterwards, it was just an empty space, with another attempt at concrete monstrosities stopped by the public in the 1960s. As in the case of Yerba Buena Gardens, a prolonged battle between developers and public resulted in a transfer to the city's Park and Recreation Department in 2012, and this park, financed by private donations, in 2022. Well done, San Francisco public. You can also donate. Link to their website in the description. So, we're now going to have a little sit down, because next up is a really long walk with a lot of old buildings. See you there. Gremlin on the road.
Electric bikes, $48 for 2 hours, $88 for the day. You guys pay when you return. If you guys book online, this is our website right here. You can get 20% off. I recommend to you book online.
Okay.
Let me know you have questions. I can help you.